Hi, I'm Simaen Skolfield. I'm a British sound engineer. Spent most of my life, my working career from a very early age, of about 14, as a sound recording engineer in London primarily. But I've worked in many, many different cities around the world, and I now reside here in the United States of America. I've worked with many great artists. As you can imagine, being in London at the heat of the 70s and the 80s, I've worked between Decca Studios and Air Studios with the George Martin facility. And I've worked with many, many artists that we all know and love, from Elton Johns and Beatles, Zombies, Moody Blues onwards. Great experience in sound recording, particularly tracking bands, pop records. I've had many hits, including a Grammy with Olivia Newton-John for her first record in the States. I've even had the distinction of having two separate artists at #1 on both sides of the Atlantic at the same time. In Britain it was Brotherhood of Man, and here in the States it was Maxine Nightingale. Right now I live in America, and I have come across the KS audio and KS digital speaker systems, and I'd like to tell you about them. These are the KS Digital C5 studio monitors. The size of the box is very, very small. It's down to about 8 inches as a cube, so it will fit in most places. Contained inside of it is a handmade carbon fiber cone within a 6.5-inch diameter chassis. In the center of it, mounted separately, is the HF driver. And you can see, when I push this in and out, you can see that the two cones are actually quite separate. By doing this, we're actually delivering both the upper frequencies and the lower frequencies, not only at the same time, which would be normal, but also from the very same point. It's called a point source. But because there are two drivers operating the same axis, we call it coaxial. 6.5 drivers, 1-inch HF. The carbon cone is very, very critical. It does two things. One, it gives us good stability, rigidity, and over a length of time, over many, many years, very, very little fade. But on top of that, it also gives us the ability to carve or curve this inner area here so that it acts as a waveguide. In other words, it's actually helping this center unit deliver a correct balance of sound for the upper frequencies out away from the box. Just here is a little blue light indicating that they are switched on. On the back of the box, you'll see that we have a self-powered unit. This is the amplifier. It's everything you need to do the job. Starting with your standard XLR input, a male input, with volume for both the overall volume and the individual bass and treble. These two holes here are the actual very, very low frequency ports to release the air. We have an IEC input here and an on-off switch next to it. This is the cooling fins for the amplifier. By the way, the amplifier is a very fast-acting MOSFET system, so it is dissipating some heat. These little holes, once you're happy with your trimming, you can put a little plug in here to maintain air pressure for the ports, and of course keep the noise down. They will make a little bit of noise if those plugs are not in there. This is the C5 system. This is a small unit, but it's remarkable because it is a very high-powered unit. It will produce all the volume we would ever need at a short-range distance that we call near field. To have this in your studio in front of you, on your console, or in an application like a truck, like a recording truck or a remote broadcast truck, this will deliver all the sound that you need at a good enough volume. The range of sound is typically the two-way system. The bottom, the upper bottom that we call really low mids, and then of course above the crossover frequency, the HF. You can, from KS, also supply a much lower frequency unit, a sub-bass unit, if you require to have a much deeper bass. But these will actually produce enough bass for a standard system. In certain applications, if you need them to be positioned or installed in an area where, of course, the cooling effect is going to be handicapped, such as an enclosure in a small production room or a remote truck, that kind of thing, you can order these unpowered, so that the power amplifiers can be separated from the drive units. The beautiful thing about this is that KS have put everything that you need into this power amplifier. At the back of these two drivers are all the equalization to correct all the sound so that you have a very good balance of sound. They also add in protection, that is limiter protection, not only for looking after the cones, but also for looking after your ears. Time alignment between two drivers is critical, so these are fully time aligned as a system. All the equalization you need, all the time alignment, all the protection for both you and the units mean that these will do the job. These are extremely agile systems so that you can really, really actually be a first-class engineer.